515 Spring Boot core understanding. Yeah, what is the Spring Boot basic definition? Basic formula, Spring Boot is equal to Spring Framework minus XML configuration plus AutoCon. What is auto configuration? Based on the jar file that we add to the build path of the build path or class path of the project. Multiple activities takes place automatically or not, guys. Based on the starters, nothing but special jar file that are added to class path. The Spring Boot take care of multiple common operations like what? Making Java class as Spring Bean, injecting one Spring Bean with what? Another Spring Bean, establishing the connection to database software, providing embedded servers and what? Etc. Super. What is this? Spring Boot starters. Okay, array based on the special starters, nothing but special jar files. Array starters are nothing but special jar files. Okay. Okay, now I'm talking about what? Spring Boot starter. Special dependencies, nothing but what? Jar files. These are special and advanced dependencies in Spring Boot programming, having capability to perform what activities? Auto configuration activity. The auto configuration activities are to perform common things dynamically that are required in what? Application development and execution. Development and what? Execution. Comfortable, my dear? Come on, everyone. Super. Configuration of certain Java classes as what? Spring Bean. Performing dependency injection among the Spring Beans. Providing dependent and what? Relevant jar files. Providing embedded database softwares. What is there? Embedded database software. Providing embedded servers. Supplies the necessary plugin required for what? Maven or Gradle tool. Gives database connectivity configurations. What configurations, guys? Database connectivity configuration and etc. Many other things are there or not there, guys. Come on, everyone. Note. Maven and Gradle are built-in tools given to developers to simplify application development process by integrating with what? IDs like this. What's the difference between dependent jar file and relevant jar file? Okay. First dot jar is having class A. Second dot jar is having what? Class B. Third dot jar is having what? Class C. Suppose if class A is using internally class B and class C, then we can say first dot jar is main jar file, second dot jar, third dot jar files as dependent jar files, boss. Suppose these are there for database interaction. As part of database interaction, we also need Oracle related connectivity jar file na boss. So can I say wo JDBC 6 dot jar is a relevant jar file? Or when these are doing database operation, we may need to talk with Oracle database software by using what? Oracle JDBC driver or not, guys? So can I say Oracle.jar as relevant jar files, my dear? Come on. If class A first dot jar are using class B, class C of second dot jar and third dot jar files, jar file, then first dot jar is called main jar file. Second, third dot jar files are called what? Dependent jar files. What jar files, guys? Dependent jar file. Okay, now listen. Let us assume first dot jar is added to class path for a database, added to class path for a database interaction. So Spring Boot automatically gives what? Oracle.jar has relevant jar file by guessing that programmer may show interest talking to Oracle database software. If not talk, it will be what? Unused. So main jar file means whose classes we are using in application directly. Dependent jar files means what? The classes of those jar files are directly not used in application, but they are used indirectly. They are used what? Indirectly in the application execution. Relevant jar files are when you do these many things, there is a chance of using those jar file content also. That is called what? Relevant jar file. You have gone to restaurant, order meals. Rice, roti, curries are main and dependents, right? But by assuming you may need a toothpick, supplying toothpick. You may enjoy what? On after is, or you may enjoy eating sweet after food. So supplying them are relevant items or dependent items. They are relevant items. Are you getting my point? Yeah. So when you add starters, what guys? When you add starters, starter means special jar file to Spring Boot project. Not only you will get main jar files, dependent jar file, you also get what? Relevant jar file. Relevant jar file is an extra concept here or not, guys? Super, guys. Tell me. Okay, based on these starters, so many activities in auto configuration takes place. Come on. Okay. Embedded database software means the database software that comes along with what? Spring Boot application execution. H2 is one embedded database. Embedded server means the server software that comes along with what? Spring Boot application execution. Nothing but what? Embedded Tomcat, embedded Jetty. Okay. The syntax of Spring Boot starters is Spring boot starter star. This is the naming convention that we have to follow. Every Spring Boot starters are having special naming convention. What is there? Spring boot starter star. Total how many starters are there, guys? Total how many starters are there? Total how many starters are there, guys? 1,000+ starters are there. What is there? Spring Boot Starter JDBC, Spring Boot Starter Web, Spring Boot Starter Batch, Spring Boot Starter Security, Spring Boot Starter JPA. Total how many starters are there? Lot of starters, 1,000+ starters are there. So when you add Spring Boot Starter JDBC, or using JDBC database connectivity will happen. Related main jar file, dependent jar file, relevant jar files will come. What jar files will come, guys? Relevant jar files will come. Okay. Spring Boot starter gives main jar file, dependent jar file, dependent jar file. That is called transitive dependency or not, guys. And also gives what? Extra jar file. Extra jar file may be used or what? Unused. A dot jar classes are using B dot jar classes. B dot jar classes are using C dot jar classes. C dot jar classes are using D dot jar classes. Here, B dot jar file is called dependent jar file to A dot jar file. B dot jar, C dot jar, D dot jar files are called what? Transitive dependent jar files to A dot jar. Okay, guys. Direct, indirect jar files are nothing but what? Transitive dependent jar file. What is this, guys? Direct, indirect jar files are called as what? Transitive dependent jar files. What jar files, my dear? Come on, everyone. Transitive dependent jar files. Are you understanding my statement, guys? Come on, everyone. Super, guys. I hope you got the basic idea. Starter means special jar file. Whenever you add starters to Spring Boot project, You will get that starter related main jar files, dependent jar files, relevant jar file. If Java application uses third-party APIs or libraries other than Java JW APIs, user-defined API, then those APIs related both main and dependent jar file should be added to class path, na boss? If the classes of first.jar are using classes of second.jar, then we can say first.jar is what? Main jar file. What jar file, guys? Then we can say first.jar is called main jar file. And second.jar file is called dependent jar file. First.jar is called main jar file. Second.jar file is called dependent jar file. Convinced, my dear? Come on, everyone. While working with the frameworks or third-party APIs or libraries, finding main and dependent jar files is easy. But identifying what? Their dependent jar files and transitive dependent jar files of what? Main jar file is very difficult or not, guys? Getting both direct dependent jar files of main jar file is called as what? Transitive dependency. Yes or no, na boss? Maven, Gradle, and extra build tools simplify this job. If you add main jar file or dependency or info to those tools, they automatically download both main and dependent jar files. Okay, from the internet or not, guys? Come on. If you add Spring Boot starters info to application using Maven Gradle, not only we get both main and direct, indirect, dependent jar files, we also get what? Relevant jar file. What's the specialty of starters, guys? If you add starters information to any project using Gradle or Maven, not only you get main jar file, you will get dependent and their dependent jar file, but you also get what? A relevant jar file. Are getting relevant jar file is extra while working with what? Starters. Okay, guys. Here, Maven Gradle tools arranges given starter related main jar file, dependent jar file, transitive dependent jar file, and also what? Relevant jar file. Check it out, guys. If we add Spring Boot starter JDBC to the project, we get Spring core jar file. Okay, main and dependent jar file. Spring JDBC jar file. Spring Boot jar file. These two are main and dependent jar file. Spring Boot jar file, main jar file. Hikari CP, Log4j, SL4j, Jackson API. They are nowhere related to main and jar file. These are coming as additional supporting jar file. Can we call them as what? Relevant jar files or not, guys? Can we call them as what? Relevant jar files or not, guys? Come on, everyone. Super. Relevant jar files are not dependent jar files of what? Main jar file. Because the classes of main jar file don't use the classes of what? Relevant jar file directly or indirectly. But they are required in overall application development. Listen. Main jar file classes uses dependent jar file classes or their dependent jar file classes. They are interlinked. But relevant jar file classes will never be used by classes of main jar file. But they are required in overall application development. That's the reason they are called as what? Relevant jar file. Listen carefully. Spring Boot starter JDBC have added. Spring core jar file, Spring JDBC jar file, main jar file and dependent jar. Spring Boot jar file, main jar file. The classes of these three jar file or these four jar file never be used by other classes of jar files. Never be used by the classes of what? Other jar files. Are you getting my point there, guys? But these classes are used. But these classes are used. So can we call them as what? Relevant jar files are na boss? They are not directly, indirectly used as part of classes of main jar file, but they are used overall in the application. So can we call them as what? Relevant jar files. I want reply, my dear. Come on, everyone. Super. Spring Boot starters give main jar files plus transitive dependent jar files plus relevant jar file. So transitive dependent means what? Direct or indirect dependent jar files. Are you getting my point there, guys? We can collect these starters info required for Maven Gradle from what? mvnrepository.com. Are you getting my point? Okay, using Spring initializers or using STS plugin. One plugin is there, we can use it. So Spring JDBC starter related jar information or not, guys. If you add this one, you will get Spring Boot starter JDBC related main jar file, dependent jar file, relevant jar file. Are when you add starters to the project, you automatically get main dependent relevant. So you need not to know about relevant jar file. Raviteja, you need not to study about relevant jar files. Are you getting my point there, guys? Come on, everyone. Okay. Yeah. Sir, in the list of jar file, there is a Hikari CP. What is need of this? That represent JDBC connection pool, guys. JDBC connection pool is a factory that contains what? Set of readily available JDBC connection objects. Agree with me, guys? Set of readily available JDBC connection objects. Are you understanding my statement or not, guys? Come on, everyone. Okay. Set of readily available JDBC connection objects. Data source object represent JDBC connection pool having set of readily available JDBC connection objects before actually being used. Hikari CP, Proxol, C3P0 and etc. Here data source object represent JDBC connection pool or not, guys? This will maintain set of readily available JDBC connection objects. Come on. Okay, Hikari CP jar is related to this connection object. While talking to database, better to use the ready-made connection or manually created connection. Yeah, this connection pool is having set of readily available connection objects or not, guys? Come on, everyone. Set of readily available JDBC connection objects or not? I want reply, my dear. Come on, everyone. Super, guys. So whatever I talked so far, that is about the starters. Simple one. Starters are the special jar files. Okay, they can be added in Maven Gradle project like any other jar file we have added in previous project. But what is the specialty of the starters? When you add starters to the project, you will get main jar file, dependent jar file, their dependent jar file. They are also called transitive dependencies or not. Come on. And lastly, we will get what? Relevant jar files. What jar files, guys? Lastly, we will get what? Relevant jar file. Single sided. What jar files, guys? Relevant jar files. What jar file, my dear? Relevant. Main jar file dependent. Okay, why we are very so important? Array, Spring Boot is known for auto configuration activity. Okay, how does it will perform those auto configuration activities? Based on the starters that are added. What activity it will do? Making predefined class as Spring Beans, injecting one Spring Bean with other Spring Bean, giving required jar files, establishing connection with the databases, okay, giving embedded database software, giving embedded server. So all these are happening because of starters only now. One. Okay, that means Spring Boot is known for auto configuration. To do that auto configuration in Spring Boot project, what we have to add? Starters. In Spring Boot project, what we have to add, my dear? We need to add starters. Clear, my dear? Got the point, my dear? Come on, everyone. Super, guys. There are multiple JVM based. That's starter discussion is over. Total 1,000 plus starters are there. Every time, whenever you want to enjoy auto configuration, we deal with what? Starters. Okay, guys. With this starters discussion is over. Now come back. Okay, now one more advantage is the Spring Boot. While doing coding of Spring Boot projects or application, not compulsory you have to write code in Java. There are multiple other JVM based languages like Groovy, Kotlin, Scala. You can also do coding of Spring Boot projects in those languages. So that means do we need to learn Kotlin Groovy now? Not required. Option is there, but everyone prefers writing in what? Java. Because we're habituated with the Java from so many days. Okay. There are multiple JVM based languages. Java, Scala, Groovy, Kotlin, and etc. All these languages have their own programming syntaxes and compilers, but they give common bytecode dot class file, which can be executed in the common JRE or JVM, which can be executed in the common JRE or JVM. Spring Boot latest version, okay, Jan 2025, this is the latest version. Array, those minor versions will change time to time, guys. Okay. STS, Spring Tool Suite, is an IDE that is used by developer for developing Spring Boot projects. But we add all these facilities to Eclipse IDE by adding STS plugin to the Eclipse IDE. By adding which plugin, guys? STS plugin to the Eclipse IDE. I hope you convinced, my dear. Come on, everyone. Okay. Why do we need starters? Nothing but special jar file in Spring Boot application. Answer 1. Based on the starter that are added to class path of the project, the Spring Boot take care of lot of auto configuration activities. Super. Based on starter that are added to the class path of the project, the build tools like Maven Gradle starts giving main jar file, dependent jar files, and what? Relevant jar file. Because of these two things, we have to add starters now, boss. Number one, auto configuration is the reason. Number two, based on the starters that are added, okay, we will get main jar files and dependent jar files or not, guys. Come on. Okay. See, guys, there are multiple JVM based languages. .java compiler gives .class file. Compiler gives .class file. Compiler gives .class file. Kotlin gives .class file. Okay, all these compilation related .class file will be given to same JRE JVM or not, guys. From there you will get the output over there or not there, guys. Okay, from there output comes, guys. Output comes over here. Output comes over here. We can do coding for Spring Boot application in multiple JVM based languages like Java, Groovy, Kotlin. Since all are habituated with what? Java is recommended. Since all are habituated, Java is recommended. Spring Boot and its modules give new annotation by combining relevant annotation to reduce the burden on the programmer. Instead of adding individual annotation, they have given advanced annotation which internally combines other annotations. Right now, boss? Okay. REST controller, array, STS IDE, STS plugin. Both are there to simplify Spring Boot project development. Are we going to use STS IDE or STS plugin added to Eclipse? In say Eclipse is industry standard IDE. We try to add STS plugin to the Eclipse IDE. Okay, Spring Boot gives advanced annotation where we combine other annotations, right? REST controller is equal to controller plus response body. REST controller is equal to controller plus response body. At the rate Spring Boot application is equal to at the rate configuration plus at the rate enable auto configuration plus at the rate component scan. At the rate what guys? Component scan. Are you getting my point? Can I get one chair? Instead of writing these two annotation, we can write single one annotation na? Okay, at the rate Spring Boot application is the biggest annotation that is having multiple other annotations na boss. That is simply having multiple other annotations. Check it out. Configuration to make the Java class as configuration class. This is to perform auto configuration activity. This is to perform. Huh? Okay. Right. Yeah. At the rate component scanning is for scanning purpose or not, guys? Come on, everyone. Okay. We can develop and test Spring Boot application without installing what? External database software and web server or our application server, because Spring Boot application execution gives embedded database software and embedded servers na boss, based on the starters that we have added or not, guys. That means while developing website by using Spring Boot, do I need to install Tomcat separately? Do I need to install Oracle database software separately, guys? Okay. Not getting my face. I should be visible now, boss. I'm there. Sridhar, why? I think you have some network issue. Please check it out. Online student, am I visible? Am I visible or not? Okay, not visible. I think I should be visible, guys. My camera is on. Everything is good. Check your side. Check your side. From my side, no issue. What's the feature number one, guys? We can develop Spring Boot application in multiple JVM based languages. Next, advanced annotations are given by combining individual annotations. Next, okay. No need of arranging database software server separately. They come as what? Built-in servers. See, no need of installing Oracle, but you can still work with the database. No need of installing Tomcat. We can still work with them. How they will come? When you execute the application, they come as what? Built-in servers, embedded database software. Very, very good in project development and testing or not, guys? I need not install Oracle. I need not install Tomcat. This will reduce burden on the programmer or not, guys? Okay. Spring Boot starters reduce number of jar file to be added by the programmer to the project, because each starter gives main jar file, dependent jar file, relevant jar file. If you add one starter, you are getting main, dependent, their dependent, and relevant. So it is reducing number of jars to be added or not, guys? Super. Converting existing Spring projects to Spring Boot projects is very difficult, but not recommended. Okay. So use Spring Boot for new projects. Nothing but greenfield projects are not, guys. Are a new projects means what, guys? Greenfield project. Not for migration projects. Not for brownfield project. Are a new highway they are constructing. New highway they are constructing. Is it called greenfield highway or brownfield highway? Okay, new highway means from the scratch level greenfield. Are already small road is there. They are extending the road to double, triple road. That is called brownfield. Okay. For Mumbai, expansion is happening. Okay. That is called brownfield city. No, they're constructing entire capital from the scratch level. That is called greenfield setting. Can I say Chandigarh is a greenfield capital or brownfield capital? Greenfield, because they constructed that city from the scratch level. Naya Raipur is a brownfield capital or greenfield capital? Greenfield, they created from the scratch level. Are you getting my point there? Amaravati of Andhra Pradesh, brownfield capital or greenfield capital? Where they are creating from scratch. Hyderabad is a brownfield capital or greenfield capital? Brownfield. Already it is there, but expansion is happening. Okay, converting existing spring projects to Spring Boot is very difficult. So that's why I always prefer Spring Boot for what kind of projects, guys? Greenfield projects, not for brownfield projects. Hyderabad is what? Brownfield capital. Chandigarh is what? Greenfield capital. AP's Amaravati is what? Greenfield capital. Are you getting my point there, guys? Come on, everyone. Okay. So these are the various features that are there in what? Spring Boot. Number one. What is number one? We can develop in any JVM based languages. Number two, auto configuration is the biggest weapon. Advanced annotations are given. Next, starters will reduce number of jars to add because main jar, lot of main dependent relevant jars will come automatically. We can develop and test the application without installing database softwares and servers, right? Okay, we can convert Spring projects to Spring Boot, but it's very difficult. That's why I always prefer Spring Boot only for what, guys? Greenfield projects. So scratch level development, new projects, guys. Scratch level development, new projects. Okay, guys, give me 1 minute. I think team has come to collect your feedback. Okay, it's a process to follow. Please cooperate. I'm sharing the feedback link in Google Drive. From there, you can access the URL and write your feedback. Right. Yeah, they're planning to use these feedbacks in the Google review because nowadays digital marking matters a lot. So some of your good reviews they will try to use in Google review. So a few of them they will use to improvise our services. Right. Okay. Yeah, what's your batch code? Yes, guys. Where is this? 515 5:30 p.m. This is your batch code now, guys. I'm taking a new folder called feedback folder or review folder, whatever it is. Let me add a Google document, blank document, create and share, say paste. Okay. Yeah. Online student, you can access the link from here. You can use it. Okay. Right. Okay, I'll take 5 minutes break. The team will come. They collect the feedback of yours on overall process. Right. Thank you. Wait for a few minutes. I'll come back. I'll continue the session after this. before going for coding. Simply before going for what? Coding. Important components of what? Spring Boot. Shall we talk about important components of Spring Boot? This is overview diagram of Spring Boot, guys. We are learning Spring Boot to enjoy all these facilities. Spring Boot contains starters. Spring Boot contain actuators, core module, core component, CLI, command line interface, lot of tools support, and lot of auto configuration support. Shall we start understanding one by one? Starters, special jar file. When they are added, you will get main dependent relevant jar file. From last half an hour, I am talking about that. Let it be. Then Spring Boot gives built-in support to work with the Maven Gradle tool to simplify our application development process. To literally simplify what? Our application development process. Anything else on that? Charging is not happening. Now it's working. Yeah. Next one, guys. Spring Boot core module, base module for other module, providing basic features of Spring Boot programming, containers, basic facilities of Spring Boot programming. Okay, next one, actuators. This is the another beauty, guys. Whenever you add this actuator component, some non-functional features will be added to Spring Boot project automat. What do you mean by non-functional feature? You take a banking project, guys. Daily transactions, withdraw deposit, opening account, closing account. All these are functional features. Transfer money, functional feature. Applying loan, rejecting loan, sanctioning loan, functional features. Say something, my dear. All these are technically, literally called as what? Functional features or not, guys? For them only we seriously developed the project or not, guys? For that only we seriously, literally developed the project. What do you say, my dear? Come on, everyone. But actuators are there providing non-functional features of the project. Okay. Non-functional feature mean they are not so important, but they help you to better in a maintenance of the project. One non-functional feature giving health status of the project. One non-functional feature giving all threads information. One non-functional feature giving what? All processes information. One non-functional feature giving what? One non-functional feature giving uh, all the spring beans information. One non-functional feature giving what? Memory of the application. So these are very useful in the project maintenance or not, guys? These are so useful in the maintenance of the project or not, guys? I want reply from you people. Project mainly developed for functional features, right? But if you give you a non-functional feature as addition, so they will be very useful in the maintenance of the project or not, guys? You look at the institute only. Who are the functional people? Faculties and students. If these two are there, main business will happen, right? But there will be one electrician, there will be one to admin staff, there will be one to office boys, there will be counselors, there will be floor in charges. Without them also we can run the business, right? But when they are there, everything happens smoothly or not, guys? I can directly come and concentrate on taking classes. You can directly come and concentrate on what? Listening class. Because remaining everything will be taken care by admin staff, right? So they can be, I can call them as non-functional features of the project or not, guys? Okay, guys. Tools, starters, actuators. Next one is what? CLI, command line interface. Instead of creating Spring Boot project from the IDEs, we can give commands in the command prompt to create each project step by step. To create each project step by step. Are you getting my point there, guys? Come on, everyone. That is what CLI. CLI means what? Command line interface. Okay, next one is what, guys? Core, the base module. Auto configuration is there to provide many facilities, common facilities dynamically based on the starters that are added or not, guys. Based on the starters that are added or not, guys. I want reply from you people. Come on, everyone. Super, guys. Spring Boot auto configure. Okay, module auto configure wide range of Spring project. It will detect availability of certain frameworks. When detected, they try to auto configure that framework with some sensible default, which in general can be overridden by what? Configuration in an application.property file or YML file. We can override the things with the support of application.property file or YML file or not, guys. Super. Based on the starters and jar files that are added to class path, the Spring Boot framework perform multiple common operation internally and what? Dynamically. Based on what feature, guys? Auto configuration feature. Based on which feature, guys? Auto configuration feature. Okay, next one is what? Spring Boot core. Uh, this module is there to recognize basic things. One property file, YML file will be recognized automatically, providing containers. All these activities will happen what? Internally in Spring Boot Con. CLI provides command prompt commands to create project, to develop the project step by step without using IDEs. Actuators are the non-functional feature, okay, like health metrics, thread info, processes info, all this heap info, all this stuff, guys. Starters are the special jar file because of which what happens, guys? Auto configuration takes place. Spring Boot tools, guys. The Maven Gradle build tool as well as what? Custom Spring Boot loader is included in this particular project. So that means what? Gradle tool support, Maven tool support is there, guys. So entire Spring Boot framework is combination of these components. Every component is having its own important. Auto configure take care of auto configuration activity. Core module will take care of providing containers, recognizing Spring Bean, recognizing some property files, some YML files automatically. CLI provides what? Command prompt command to create the projects and develop the process step by step. Actuators provide what? Non-functional feature that are required in project execution. Starters are the special jar file. We will give main dependent and relevant jar file. Maven Gradle are what? Supporting tools that we are having. Maven Gradle are the supporting tools that we are having. Are you getting my point there or not there? Come on. Comfortable, my dear. Come on, everyone. The dependency added to Maven Gradle project will give us main dependent jar file, including transitive. The Spring Boot starters added to Maven Gradle project will give us main jar files, dependent jar files, and what? Relevant jar file. There are 1,000+ starters in Spring Boot or not, guys? Okay, these are the various starters. Okay, now tell me. Now I am taking exclusively about Spring Boot starters. Exclusively about what? Spring Boot starter. These are 6 type of Spring Boot starters that are there now, boss. Total, how many types of Spring Boot starters that are there? I want reply from you people. How many types of Spring Boot starters that are there? Spring core. One is web, one is cloud, one is data store, one is Netflix OSS, batch, message. These are six categories. What, guys? Six categories of starters that are there. Okay, Spring Core starter. The basic core module, main dependent relevant jar files will come. Okay, next one, data store. Okay, whatever starters that are required for database connectivity, Spring Data JPA, Spring Data MongoDB, anything related to database connectivity will be coming in data store. Cloud for developing microservice architecture applications. Web to develop what? Web application and distributed application, web service based distributed application. Yeah, message for messages based communication. I want to teach two software application talking to each other through messages. Exchanging data as what? Messages. Then we have messaging related starter. Okay, batch. Batch is there for batch processing. Array. LIC is having 30 crore customer. Every month first week, automatically 30 crore customer should be evaluated. Whoever having renewal of the policies in that month, their name should be picked up and we should send reminders to them. We should send reminders to them. Okay. That should run in the background batch by batch or not. First batch, take 10,000 record, find out who is having due date in this month. Okay, some XYZ, allow them. Second 10,000, find out who is having due date. Whoever there, list them in an Excel file. List them in what? Text file. So that needs to deal with a huge amount of data batch by batch or not, guys. Super. Netflix OSS. These are supporting jar files in microservice architecture. Yesterday, what I said, in microservice architecture, every service will be developed as a separate project. Later, those projects will be kept in what? Interaction. Later, these projects will be kept in what? Communication. Okay. With the support of what, guys? With the those projects will be kept in what? Communication. With the support of what, guys? Simply with the support of. Simply, literally with the support of what? Some third party tools and design pattern. Those third party tools will be supplied by whom? Netflix OSS. What is that? Netflix OSS. Clear, my dear? Got the point, my dear? Come on, everyone. The multiple microservices of the microservice architecture project will communicate with each other using what? Netflix supplied third party tools. Netflix supplied third party tools. Netflix is not just OTT platform. It is a big software vendor company. Lots of tools related to microservice architecture based application development are given by whom, guys? Are given by Netflix. Are given by Netflix. Are definitely given by Netflix or not, guys? No doubt in that. Okay. OTT means what, guys? Over the top. Okay. See, what is the purpose of this? Starter, cloud, to develop microservice architecture application. Data store, to interact with what? Database software for both SQL and NoSQL, guys. Here we can do interaction of what? Both SQL and NoSQL. Both SQL and NoSQL. Message. For message based interaction between the application. Batch. For batch processing. Processing the huge amount of data at a time. Web. To develop the web applications and what? distributed application. To develop the web applications and a distributed application. That's great. Netflix OSS, Spring Tool Suite, exclusive IDE for Spring Boot app. Gives the tools required for microservice-based applications interaction. Microservice-based what? Application interaction. Are you getting my point there, guys? Come on. Yeah, tell me what are the good IDEs for Spring application development, guys? The good IDEs for Spring application development is Eclipse IDE with STS plugin. Come on. That's the best one or not, guys? STS IDE number 3, IntelliJ IDE number 2. Number 1 is Eclipse IDE with STS plugin. Number 2 is what? IntelliJ IDE. Number 3 is what? STS IDE. Okay. Okay, now have a look on this, my dear. Come on. A typical Spring application looks like this. Spring application development looks like this. Number 1, create basic project structure either by using STS plugin added to what? IntelliJ IDEA, IntelliJ IDEA IDE, IntelliJ is from, or Eclipse IDE, or you can go to a website given by Spring people, start.spring.io. Maybe not visible, bit blur, don't worry. Start.spring.io. It is an IDE, boss. It is an IDE. Yeah, either by going to IDE, we can create a project, or by using STS plugin added to Eclipse IDE or what, IntelliJ IDE. We can create a basic project. Then we can choose the build tool, either Gradle or Maven. Then we can add the starters, boss. Select the special jars, right? Then on the top of the main class, to tell that it is not a normal application, it is a Spring Boot application, you should add one special annotation called @Spring Boot application annotation. What is the annotation? Okay, boss. Lastly, okay, whatever code that is developed, we pack into jar file. That jar file will contain what? Code plus Tomcat server or not, guys? Give me 2 minutes, guys. Yeah. After developing everything, we pack the code into jar file, na boss? బయట 2 పేపర్స్ ఉన్నాయి కదా అండ్ బ్యాంక్ స్టేట్మెంట్ ఉంది కదా అవన్నీ పంపించేసేయండి. Yes, once again see the flow, guys. What's the flow? Spring Boot application development procedure. Spring Boot application development by using STS plugin either in Eclipse or IntelliJ IDE. We create a basic structure of the project, right? Or we also give inputs to. We also give what? We also give inputs to what, guys? We also give what? Inputs to website. Website also can create either that or this. We select one or other build tool, Maven or Gradle. Maven is best. We add starters, nothing but special jar files, which gives main dependent. And by adding Spring Boot application code on the main class, we develop the remaining code. Okay. Once code is developed, we pack and release. So in the packed one, not only code will be there, embedded servers, embedded database softwares will be there or not there, guys. Super. Okay. Other annotations are there or not there. In every Spring Boot application, one annotation is compulsory. That is what? At the rate Spring Boot application annotation. Tell me, it's a combination of how many annotations, my dear? Three annotations. What is the purpose of all the three annotations? Number one, at the rate configuration. I want reply from you people. It is very useful to make the current class as configuration class. If whenever you want to give inputs and instructions to IOC container through Java statement, we take the support of configuration class or not, guys? We definitely take the support of configuration class or not, guys? Super, guys. Tell me. Makes the Java class as Spring Bean come configuration class, where other Java classes can be configured as what? Spring Bean. It is alternate to Spring Bean configuration file. What file, guys? Configuration file. Okay. Next, at the rate enable auto configuration. This is responsible for performing auto configuration activity based on the starters that we have added, right? Based on the starters that we have added, uh, it will take care of what? Performing auto configuration activities, making predefined classes as Spring Beans, injecting one Spring Bean with another Spring Bean. Come on. Making predefined class as Spring Bean, injecting one Spring Bean with what? Another Spring Bean. Are you getting my point there, guys? Come on. Super. Okay. This annotation makes Spring Boot framework to perform auto configuration based on the starters that are added. It will give lots of common things, including what? Processing certain predefined classes as Spring Bean and doing injection activities on them. Simply doing injection activities on them. At the rate component scan, guys. Come on. Takes all the Java classes marked with a stereotype annotation like component service from current package and its sub packages to make them as Spring Beans automatically or not, guys? To simply and literally make them as Spring Beans automatically or not, guys? I want reply from you people. Come on, everyone. Example, at the rate component scan base package com.nt. Array, we don't need to write this. This is already coming now. It takes the current package of the current class. That package in sub packages, sub packages. It will search for. Are there any stereotype annotation? Are there any stereotype annotation found or not? If found, what it will do? If found, what it will do, guys? Happily it will. Happily it will. What it will do, guys? Come on. Takes them as Spring Beans, makes them as Spring Beans. Right. At the rate Spring Boot application is what level annotation? Class level annotation. Okay. See, guys. Public class app1 config at the rate Spring Boot application. Since it is becoming configuration class internally, can we place at the rate bean methods now, boss? Public date, create date, and new date of. At the rate bean methods are very useful to make predefined classes as Spring Beans. I hope you remembered all this stuff, guys. Are we going to call at the rate bean methods manually? No, they will be called automatically. They become Spring Beans automatically. This is what we discussed yesterday or not. From the so many days we are discussing that point. From so many days we are discussing that point or not, guys? Come on, everyone. Super, guys. In Spring Boot application, we generally take main class having Spring Boot application annotation. What annotation, guys? Spring. In the root package like com.nt. So all the classes of that root package and sub packages can be scanned for Java classes having stereotype annotation to make those classes as what? Spring Bean. By adding STS plugin to Eclipse ID, we can use all the features of STS ID in Eclipse itself now, boss. Okay, now here's some more point. To configure user-defined class as Spring Bean, we need to use what? Stereotype annotation, because we can add these annotation on the top of the class. We already know all these simple points, right? To configure predefined class as what? Spring Bean. We need to use @bean method in configuration class, because we cannot edit the source code of predefined class to add the stereotype annotation. So now tell me, guys, generally whatever object this method is returning, this method return date class object will become what? Spring Bean automatically having bean ID dt. Simply having what? Bean ID dt. Are you comfortable, my dear? Come on, everyone. Super. @bean methods will be executed what? Automatically to make the method returned objects as Spring Beans or not, guys? To simply make the method returned objects as Spring Beans or not? I want reply, guys. Convinced or not, guys? I want reply from you people. Everyone getting my point there or not there? Super. Shall we revise what we discussed so far? Today we first understood starters, special jars given by Spring Boot. When they are added to Spring Boot project, we automatically get main jars, dependent jars, relevant jars. Main jar file, dependent jar files, and what? Relevant jar files. Clear, guys? Then we discussed about Spring Boot features. We can develop in any JVM based language. Advanced annotation, combining small annotations. Okay, starters will simplify efforts of the programmer. Embedded servers and what? Database software, auto configuration. But overall, these are not good for brownfield project. They are good for greenfield project, new projects. Then we discussed about 6 components that are main in what? Spring Boot, auto configure for auto configuration, tools for tool support, actuator for non-functional features, like these 6 components we discussed. Okay, then we discussed about categories of starters, boss. Cloud for microservices, web for web application and distributed application, core for basic activities. Come on. Some important starters we discussed or not, guys. Then I have given one diagram. What are the steps in application development? First, we develop the basic structure. We choose the tool. We add the starter. We develop the code beginning with @Spring Boot application. Lastly, we pack the code. That packed code will have code plus embedded server, code plus embedded database software. Yes, my dear. Lastly, we discussed about the importance of @Spring Boot application annotation. It's a combination of how many annotation? 3. It makes wherever that annotation is applied, that class has configuration class. So I can keep @bean methods inside it to make predefined class as Spring Beans na, boss. Number 2, @enable configuration, autocon, based on the starters that are added to build path or class path. Okay, some Java classes will become Spring Beans or not, guys. Number 3, component scan. Component scan. What's the purpose of this, guys? scans the packages, current class and its packages, sub-package, and takes all stereotype annotation classes and makes them as spring beans or not, guys. Simply literally makes them as spring beans or not, guys. Super, guys. Now, can I upload the material now? Where is this? This is 5:30 p.m. Next. What is there? Spring Boot core. File upload.